Okay, everyone, welcome to another episode of Welcome to the Beyond the OC. I am Melinda Clark here with
Wait, sorry, I just got confused.
what?
Why did you say welcome to the?
It's like my joke here.
Oh, no, I didn't pick up on that. I thought you
No,
actually messed
no,
up.
because we did this for so long.
That's not a very
Oh,
funny
I
joke.
think it's hysterical because I said it for so many years. It felt like so many episodes, but we are beyond the OC, and when we go beyond the OC now, well, we get to include the fans and make this fan centric. And CG, how are you doing today? My daughter CG, everyone?
I'm fine.
Yeah.
It's gloomy.
I know it's gloomy. We both live on kind of opposite ends of, you're in Southern California and I'm in Central California.
Northern,
Yeah.
Southern
And it's
California.
gray. It's
Northern
gray.
Southern.
They call it May gray or June gloom or
No, it's
no
June
sky
gloom, but we're in
July. And I was
April.
trying to come up with it. It needs to be like April chill or April still chill, something that rhymes. I don't know. Nothing rhymes with it.
That
It's
doesn't
just the
rhyme.
IL. Anyway, so here we are on our OC kind of rewind list that you guys have all voted on. This episode is number 47, the Safe Harbor, the Free Marissa episode. And basically, okay, it was directed by Tony Warmby. Tony Warmby, who I really wanted to get on the podcast before. He was Warmby, Mr. Tony Warmby. He's actually retired and living in Hawaii, and he sent the best to us, but we never got to have him on the podcast. And it was written by Josh Schwartz and Mike Kelly. So this episode, it's in season 3, and at least we have some episodes in season 3 that you all have voted for. But I like to have fun with the intro, and this one's kind of a long one. I thought it was kind of an epic. I don't know. I really appreciated.
This was a very epic episode. Like, it was very
memorable, but it's a very mixed bag. We didn't have as much fan response on Reddit and Instagram. I did, but and the things that people really talked about were Johnny and Misha's hair, because I thought her hair was so amazing. But as I started to write the intro, I realized it's kind of this, it's very dramatic, the end scene. It was very satisfying. So my intro it started sounding like a Game of Thrones narration or a Lord of the Rings.
Should I do the theme song as you read it?
Oh, is this Game of Thrones? Right. No. Okay, listen. As the final days of winter break trickle away, our band of reluctant Atomic County heroes begrudgingly convenes at the bait shop for one last taste of freedom before the grip of their final high school semester reclaims them. Amidst the clinking of mocktails and in a nod to 90210 and the legendary Donna Martin, Seth, Summer, and Ryan embark on yet another of Summer's on a mission escapades, determined to, quote, free Marissa from the clutches of Newport Union and thrust her back into the manufactured utopia of Harbor High to graduate. Meanwhile, Mopey Johnny grapples with the harsh reality that he may be standing in the way of Marissa's happiness, wrestling with his own pity party, but I love her. Why doesn't she love me? Sentiments. In the midst of this teenage turmoil, Julie and Neil stumble through an awkward pas de deux of their post-divorce existence, finding solace as drinking buddies in each other's company as they navigate the murky waters of co-parenting. And as the looming arrival of the epically important senior class pictures draws near, Sandy emerges like the surfing legal crusader he is, wielding a briefcase packed with hope and cunning strategy to either win over or blackmail or guilt, I don't know which, the formidable Judge Mercer. His ultimate aim? To extricate Marissa from the clutches of academic exile at Newport Union. With the stakes higher than Seth's caffeine intake, Sandy's daring plan becomes the last hope for our beloved Core 4 to restore harmony to the hallowed halls of Harbor High. Okay. Okay. That was Game of Thrones?
Yeah. May I just say, I miss Game of Thrones. I watched the finale a few weeks ago, and I've really been missing it. My life hasn't been the same since I finished it. So thank you for bringing me back there, Mom. with your epic introduction.
I don't know what that was. I do want to say our guest today is someone who I just think hallowed halls of 90210 / the OC is befitting this person, because Sherry Weiss she is our super supporter of the podcast, and she's also a journalist. She's an author, writer of teen drama horror blog. And she's also an expert on all the teen dramas, like I said, including the OC and most importantly, 90210. Hi, Sherry. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, thanks for having me on this iteration of the podcast.
When we asked you to do this episode, were you like, well, of course? Did you think like, how is this episode in your library of favorites?
Well, it's interesting because when I was on Welcome to the OC Bitches for the first time, it was actually for an episode, a few episodes before this. I was on for The Swells, which is also very into the Johnny Harper era. And then, so this just picks up a few weeks after that. It's the first episode back after the hiatus that was in season 3. So you had the Chrismukkah Bar Mitzvah, and then you guys had your hiatus, and then this brought us back in, and it kind of resets the rest of the season because it's all about getting Marissa back into Harbor High and the core 4 back together.
Well, CG, what was your take on this episode? Because you watched it years ago, but this is kind of your first take, rewatch.
I mean, we're gonna get into it more, but Johnny is a whiny little baby. Oh my God. Just reminds me of like so many boys I went to high school with, and honestly, like
really
some guys like my friends have dated. I'm like, oh, you're so whiny. Like, grow up.
So this is good casting because it's realistic. Guys are like this.
Yeah.
Really?
The amount of guys I've dealt with who are just like whiny, sad little boys who think it's so funny to just like be sad all the time. I'm like, get over it. Like,
okay.
Oh my gosh.
So this
and like needy. He's so needy.
This was painful
so
for you.
Clingy.
You know people like this. Okay.
I'm not gonna say if I knew them recently or a long time ago, but people he reminded me of.
Well, let's be fair. Marissa isn't blameless here, right? She takes on more responsibility than anyone is asking her to do.
No. I'm just saying Johnny as a person.
Yes. But, the idea that, Johnny can't go on the Pac West, that doesn't mean you can't go back to the school that you went to before, Marissa. One has nothing to do with the other.
There was I think there's a little fist shaking, like, oh. There was somebody who wrote that on Instagram, Alicia 311989. She wrote, Johnny's storyline was a bit much, but ultimately Marissa let him on a lot. But he clearly had other issues too to react like he did when she rejected him. So, I mean, do you think she let him on, or did she, when we talk about her, she explains like, it is my fault. Like, this guy getting hurt is my fault. But does that mean that she has to give up her possibility of getting back into Harbor High to go to a party?
No, it's absurd.
Okay, well, we're jumping ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, we're ahead. We need to touch on all the other little extra things that made this episode what it was before we dive into the nitty gritty that is Johnny.
Okay. Where do you want to start?
Well, Summer and Seth, it opens with just like classic, funny Summer and Seth. And I think, Mom, you said this on the podcast with Rachel, or maybe Rachel said it when you guys did it the first time. This is the first episode that we see, like in a long time, that we see Seth not being his self-absorbed Seth. He's like actually doing something for someone else. Like none of this storyline is about him.
Right.
And he doesn't make it about him. Like we've seen, like, even when storylines aren't about him, he usually spins it. Like when we saw Ryan's birthday, it's like he makes the tribute band what he likes and not what Ryan likes. Like there's always a way he like spins it. But in this, it's all about Marissa. He doesn't do anything to be self-absorbed, which I thought was surprising.
I think also in the book, which now we can talk about, so many revelations about the book, that by the time season 3 came around, it was known that Adam wasn't so invested So they started kind of writing a storyline, when he was smoking pot, it was because I had no idea it was because they didn't feel like he was putting that much into it, and admittedly himself wasn't putting that much into it. So being kind of like a sidekick and having actually some of the best lines, I thought. The Summer, Seth, and Taylor stuff to me was some of my
favorite. So funny. Dynamic. This is the first time we see the dynamic of like the three of them. And the whole like sexual favors thing when he walks up to her and he's like, I've been told I have to offer you sexual favors. And she's like, in another world with hot wax, tube socks, and a Fiona Apple CD. And I'm like, who's Fiona Apple?
Oh no.
Like, I don't know who that
I want to game this out though. Let's say Taylor said, yes, Seth, I will accept your sexual favors. Let's go. They get in the bedroom. What does Seth do? Does he go through with it?
What does the tube sock have to do with anything?
Taylor's got fantasies.
I mean, he wouldn't go through with it, obviously. I think he would come up with some witty remark being like, well, got to talk to your button guy first. And, maybe let's revisit it after, he'd come up with some witty, funny remark.
But I remember in the podcast, but then just watching it before, first of all, Paula Trickey playing Taylor's mom, Mrs. Townsend, who was, once Julie wasn't so mean anymore, they had to have this character that was kind of what Julie used to be, or the way she was introduced. Mm-hmm. And I love that she's like, he goes, your mom's a sports agent? Like, oh, which is like a very scary thing.
I can't picture her in that role.
Yeah.
I was struggling with her motivation here, right? Like, what does she care whether Marissa's a student there or not? How does it hurt her if she is? How does it benefit her if it's not?
This episode was full of people who just reminded me of people I've known in my life. The schools I went to, there were so many moms like this who just wanted to be involved in stuff for like no benefit to themselves, really. They just wanted to like stir the pot and start things.
But I thought it was really great. No, I thought it was really great how it was revealed. It was smart how they revealed that Marissa's out because she decided that Marissa was Taylor's biggest competition and you have a friend, so I'm getting her out, which was such a petty undermining thing. But this is how agents would, a sports agent or people of that mentality would work.
Yeah.
And I thought that was just like so revealing. And then the fact that Summer can read lips again was one of the best things.
Yeah, that was funny.
And the editing was done so well and everything. That was the comic relief, I think, in this episode. So I was all for the still they continue with like the Saving Private Ryan kind of theme of everything. And
it definitely was the comedic part of the whole episode.
Paula herself is a teen drama connection. She was on Beverly Hills 90210. She had a very small recurring role on that in season 3.
Oh, did she? I didn't know that. Oh, you've got all the connections. You should, shout out. Cool.
Yes.
That's cool.
Rachel and I, we really celebrated the show. I know you and I have talked about how our experience on the show was great, but I'm learning that other people had different experiences, and everyone that's their reality and that's their story to tell. But I saw something recently. I think she actually made a comment about everyone being rude to her on set, and I was like, wow. Oh, that's I always like feel a little like negative about that, like, or she was really being quite. She said it wasn't a nice experience to be on the show. And I was like, oh. And she said that Autumn was lovely, but it was something I saw recently.
Well, that's a bummer.
Because I have to pay attention to all this stuff, but it is what it is.
Well, speaking of her being like how Julie used to be, I think we need to touch on Julie and Dr. Roberts.
Yeah.
Because this is when they first, like the last episode we talked about, Julie and Dr. Roberts are like full on dating and they finally tell Marissa and Summer. But in this episode, this is where they like start becoming buddies.
Something more.
And I just thought their relationship in this episode, just like starting out as friends, was so cute. He was so supportive and nice. And like, especially when he comes to the trailer and Julie's like, I wasn't going to go. Like, Marissa doesn't need me. And he's like, everyone needs their mom. And like, boosts Julie up. And then also when he's like, I'm just going to go take the pork rinds and chat with Gus outside. He was just like very sweet and supportive in this episode.
And he looks huge. Like he's a tall man.
In that trailer.
In the trailer, it was always...
You wouldn't think of him as being someone who provides comic relief, but like when he took that pork rind into his mouth and he's trying to eat it as he walks out and makes the Gus reference, that was funny. But I was really moved later on during the hearing when he stood up for Marissa and said, she's been living in my house and any father would be proud to have her as their daughter. And that just made me really think, man, her actual father is not there.
Yeah. On Reddit, I'm not going to say it's like
G4321.
Yeah. Dr. Roberts was such a gem. After Sandy, he was the best dad when we saw on the show, which is great. And Rosina just said, and he sticks up for Marissa. And I think that's when we talk about Julie's, story arc. This is when I talk about her time in the trailer ended up being like, that's when she was the most happy. But in this particular episode, the girls don't know about it. She's still hiding. She still has shame because this is where she is. In fact, somebody said on Reddit, McGurlerific, purely fangirl. This is sweet. I just wanted to share this. Purely fangirling and wasting your time, Ms. Clark, and that of your beautiful daughter, CG. I watched this episode when it aired, and I was a senior in high school. And to this day, I'm obsessed with Julie's character and character arc and character flaws and character draw. You don't get this kind of following when you play a person that sleeps with their daughter's boyfriend without doing something right. It's like, it could have been all downhill after that, right? You absolutely crushed it. Thank you. And all the directions it took you in. I love hearing your takes on the pod. I appreciate you so much. Your openness, memories, badassness. Thanks for reaching out to our Reddit community. Thanks, Reddit community. We keep talking, even though in the book, specifically, season 3 is the bizarro world and the feelings behind the scenes when Josh and everyone seemed to think that it was such a negative. And I guess when you compare it to the other seasons, but I thought Julie's storylines, they really resonate way better than what I remember them being. So I guess there's that.
I was going to say that I think this episode at the end shows how far Julie and Marissa have come. So a year and a half ago, we have Marissa letting out her scream and throwing a lawn chair in the pool when her mom just wants to know what's really going on with her. But by the end of this episode, Marissa says, like, I'm just ready to come home. And she's fine with that home being a trailer because home isn't a mansion or this. It's where her mom is.
Yeah. Home is where the mom is.
Like CG, I keep saying, if I end up in I've always said, there's great trailers on.
Yeah, Mom, I'm 24. I have no plans on living with you again anytime soon. So if you end up in a trailer, go you, but I'm going to have my own apartment somewhere else. Okay. That's great for you. And I'd be happy for you.
Where the mom is? Home is where the mom is?
I moved back to California.
To be near mom?
Literally back in this state.
We're a couple hours away from each other, though.
We were talking about that when your Wi-Fi cut out. We were talking about how long my drive is and everything.
Yeah, it's a long one. Hey, Beyond the OC listeners, I am so excited. I'm very excited because this episode is brought to you by Lola V. Lola V, it's an award-winning hair care line founded by the OG and iconic Jennifer Aniston. You know, that hair, it's so iconic. It needs no introduction. Need I say more? Yes, we're going to say more.
Imagine this. Jen got tired of the same old struggle we all face, choosing between hair products that work and ones that are actually good for us. Now, that dilemma is history with Lola V.
We all put our hair through the ringer. The coloring, heat styling, stress, aging. Yes, I am aging. Yes, I'm accepting it. But the list goes on. Over time, it takes a toll. That's why it's crucial to have products that not only repair the look of the damage, but also shield your locks from future harm. Enter Lola V. Clean, plant-powered products for every hair type and texture.
And here's a treat for you, our awesome listeners. For a limited time, you can get an exclusive 15% off your entire order at lolav.com. Just use code OC, just the letters OC, at checkout. I mean, if you're taking hair care advice, why listen to anyone besides the woman who gave you the Rachel hairstyle?
Yeah, I think we can all agree that Jennifer has always had the most beautiful hair. I always copied her hairstyle in the 90s. I mean, Literally, I copied it. And I was just watching it the other day and I was like, oh, I remember when I copied that hairstyle. We all wanted to know how to get that hair. And I have really, really fine hair. It can be frizzy. It can be lifeless. It can have no weight. And I color it and I blow dry it and I use heat on it. I can use all the help I can get. You know what? So the very, very first time I used it, my hair seemed to just like automatically like calm down for multiple days even. I styled it. This morning, I used everything. I used the shampoo, the conditioner, and then the glossing detangler, the leave-in formula, the lightweight oil, and it all worked so well, and it felt so healthy. Did you notice, CG? Did you notice how pretty my hair is? It's
oh
so
my God,
soft.
Mom, your hair looks so pretty. Do you know how pretty my hair looks? Because I also used the shampoo and the conditioner and the intensive repair treatment because my hair has just been so dry since I moved, and I really needed this intensive repair treatment. I used it yesterday and blow dried my hair, and my hair is shiny and it smells good. I also just love the fact that it's natural and completely plant-based. It has no silicones, sulfates, parabens, or gluten, and it's cruelty-free and completely vegan, and it makes me feel better about washing my hair all the time because I do yoga. My head gets sweaty. I wash my hair quite a bit. But now that I know that I'm using this shampoo and conditioner that's just full of good ingredients, I don't feel as stressed about stripping the oils out of my hair and everything. And also my hair smells delicious.
Especially if you're working on a set every day, the hair takes so much heat and damage, and especially if you work out a lot. I like to wash my hair as much as I can, but I feel strange. I feel concerned that I wash it too much or do too much to it. But to know that these ingredients can really help replenish, I just love it. I love it.
Fret no longer because now we have Lolavie.
Yeah. Unlock Jennifer Aniston approved hair at lolavie.com. As our loyal listeners, you'll get an exclusive 15% off your entire order when you use code OC at checkout. That's 15% off your order at lolavie.com with promo code OC. lolavie.com. Again, as our loyal listeners, you'll get an exclusive 15% off your entire order when you use code OC at checkout. That's 15% off your order at lolavie.com with promo code OC. Please note, you can only use one promo code per order and discounts can't be combined. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. So please support our show and tell them we sent you.
Well, speaking of parents, we get to see a classic Sandy in this episode that we haven't seen in a really long time.
Yeah.
Lawyer Sandy.
I just love this, Sandy. Sherry, whenever we go through these episodes, and I always think like how many ways that Sandy went off and how they, so Matt helps him out in this episode.
Still don't understand like who Matt is or why he's here. He's just like, every time he comes up on the screen, I'm like,
shoehorned.
So Stephanie Savage said that Matt was brought on specifically to be this, she called him like a Tom Cruise-esque guy, but with a I don't know why that was the description, but somebody that would get Sandy into trouble, somebody that would derail him from his, and they never fully committed to that storyline.
Yeah, because like you can see definitely like, I don't know if it's before this or after this, since we're bouncing around in episodes, I don't know the order of everything, but when he's dating that girl Maya, and like trying to get Sandy to like get her to sign off on something because Matt's dating her and like all these things. He definitely does get Sandy into trouble, but I don't think they committed to it enough because his character is kind of just like,
yeah. And
especially this isn't even in this episode, but the whole Matt and Marissa thing, we talked about it. It's just odd. I don't know. Matt's weird.
Yeah, no, I think it was almost like you think that there's going to be something between them and it doesn't. It just ends up being a friendship. But when he first showed up, he was going to strip clubs. And I think that's where they were like, we're not going to do that. But anyway.
Yeah, Matt seems more like a by any means necessary kind of guy. He's willing to cross the lines that Sandy isn't. Sandy still has his ethics and his moral compass. And it was interesting to see them sort of collide, but not really in a fireworks kind of way in this episode. Because we do see, Matt presents him this file of information about the judge's son, and Sandy has to decide, am I going to use this? Am I not? I didn't remember at the end, though, that Matt actually finds the judge's son, and that allows Sandy and him to help them and do a good deed through this. But what also really struck me in watching the Matt of it all was that Jeff Hefner, he went on to do Hellcats, which was a short-lived show on the CW. It aired for one season. And I thought he was wonderful on there. And then today he's doing commercials for a security alarm system for a few years. That's been his job.
The guy who played Matt?
Yes.
He was the host of a game show this last year.
Yes. And I don't know why he didn't have
what game show?
Oh, I forget what it's called, but she's right. And I just don't know why his acting career didn't pop. He's handsome. I don't know.
He's in the Christopher Nolan world. He's had a few roles smaller roles in his film. I think so, yeah. But he's a gorgeous man.
He is a gorgeous man. I understand the Tom Cruise
but he's like this silver fox now. Because he's all like white hair.
So he's a DILF now?
CG, don't say DILF.
Would you rather her say MILF?
Yeah, I know how there's certain words you don't like. I do not like that word.
Yeah, but everyone calls Julie Cooper a MILF. Why can't I call someone a DILF?
I can handle that word. DILF, just like, I can't handle that WERF, I called it. Especially coming out of your mouth. That's wrong.
You know who else is a DILF?
No.
Ian Somerhalder.
Shut up.
He is a pretty boy. And only one of us on this call got to,
Oh, man. But I guess getting to, listen, finishing up with the Sandy Cohen, his...
You know who's a DILF? You know who's a DILF?
Shut.
Those eyebrows.
Is it awkward, Sharon?
That schmear. The way he schmears his bagels.
Oh, God.
I have a joke I can make, but I won't do it.
Do it.
I was going to say something about creaming with the cream cheese and, putting that out there.
No. Oh, my gosh. Like, I don't think, actors, if they can blush on command, that would be, it's happening. My cheeks.
I'm like... For those of you who are listening and not watching, I'm fanning my face now.
Oh boy.
Well, I will say something that distracted me in the Sandy scenes were not his eyebrows, but on his desk, everything's all professional, and then he has the Yankees paraphernalia on his desk. It was, I don't remember what it was, but it was some kind of Yankees.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
What have you. No, it was in the shot every time he was at his desk.
It's so interesting, I mean, God bless him. I do feel like I remember Peter going what am I doing? I went from being this defender of, public defender of young kids. And now I'm running the Newport group. And
now he's a DILF.
Yeah. But at the same time, it was always such a joy to work with Peter because he is so good and present and brings so much to it. And it didn't matter the material; it still was entertaining to watch. But when he does his speech at the end, and I thought the whole hearing at the end was done well, except for the point where the kids aren't supposed to address the board, and then of course Brian gets to stand up, and they just let that go out. Because Brian has to talk, and but Sandy's speech was heartfelt, and ultimately it was Judge Mercer's I know what you're doing, and I don't know, it felt good. It was like somebody on Instagram, Commandante Noel, said it was an episode where justice, camaraderie, and above all friendship triumphed. You
can see that everyone by the end they're going to every storyline that was there and showing how it wrapped up. Dr. Roberts and Summer, Julie and Marissa, and then the four are all going to the diner together, and Sandy and the judge. It's everything wraps up in a little bow.
Yeah. It feels great. It feels great. But
no drama in this episode except Johnny, but
the real bow on it is the photos on the bleachers at the end when they all take the class picture, and
so cute. I made a comment about that. Yeah.
It is. There was, I remember, I don't even the first time we had Thomas Fichter, our production designer. So we were kind of focused on the sets and everything. And I thought always.
Also from 90210.
And he was on 90210. Exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
And he did like hundreds.
150 something episodes.
Yeah. But I listened, it was California by Rogue Wave, which is so funny. I wanted to look that up again last night. And we had a rogue wave down here in Ventura during the rains at the beginning of the year. And that's the first thing that popped up. That's a little side note. It was so funny. I'm like, no, I'm looking for the song, not the rogue wave that happened during the storm.
Should I read the lyrics?
The lyrics are really interesting.
Screw California and friends that are never there and places that they oughta pretend that they even care. From a false family, she could light you up like a holiday tree in the summer.
That's just part of it. But I thought those were really interesting. From a false family, she could light you up. Is that Marissa?
I think a lot of people are from false families. Like Ryan's from a false family. Marissa's kind of from a false family,
From the traditional. Song. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a sweet song. And it had some kind of like, that's why in the intro, I was like the ever epic senior class photos.
Yeah.
It is epic. And that's when I was like, on my Instagram, I said, hey, Wigabuddy, do you have feelings about this episode? Because what'd you feel about Johnny and Marissa's hair? Because for some reason, I just kept thinking like, that's the hair that every girl would want. She just had the beautiful hair. And of course, that's what everyone commented on Johnny and Marissa's hair.
Well, someone on Reddit about this episode said, it's Booney Girl said, I always loved the end of the episode where they take class pictures. It's so hopeful. And maybe the last time the core four were happy, I wish this had been Johnny's last episode. So I think that's a good detour into talking about Johnny, because I agree. This really could have been the last time all four of them were like happy together. I don't know what happens in the next couple episodes before Johnny dies, but this really could have been the last time. What? Oh, shoot. Spoiler.
I feel
sorry, guys.
Really bad. Like, and this has no reflection on Ryan Donahue, who's such a lovely, lovely guy. And we asked him to be on the podcast as well. And he was unavailable, but.
Oh no, he did the character wonderfully.
Yeah, no, he played it really well. But they were talking about in the book how they cast him off a tape, and physically they didn't realize, Misha's a very tall woman. And I think they were once again, he was just smaller physically than what they thought he was on screen. So
I think it worked with his character though, because he was like small in character, like in maturity and everything.
No,
so I think it worked.
Let's give him I'm going to defend him. He does a good thing here, right? Doesn't
yeah,
he?
But
it's because Ryan guilts him. So let's talk about this.
But I know what I know that happens later.
I know what I know what I know.
I know what I know.
So it's not pure, it's manipulative. Okay. But so because Chili goes
what we know.
He's like, he freaks out because he's gonna be on the Pac West, but he freaks out because he's trashed his room, and poor Chili is all upset.
Well, so the Pac West is like, okay, yeah, we still want to bring you on regardless of your injury, you're gonna heal. And then Chili, I thought this upset me about Marissa. So Ryan drives all the way to her school during lunch just to show her the shirts and the buttons and be like, look, I made this for you. We're all working so hard. And then Chili calls her because he needs a book. And Marissa's like, oh, I gotta go. He needs a textbook. Sorry, Ryan. Bye. Thanks for coming. I was like, if I was Ryan, I'd be like, are you kidding me? Like, I'm your boyfriend and I went out of my way to show you all these nice things we're doing for you. She goes to Johnny's house because Chili needs a book and his room is trashed and the Pac West doctors won't sign off. So Johnny will not be on the team.
I just feel like the audience you feel kind of jerked around. His leg is broken. And I think this is what they were saying in the book. It's never a good thing, or it wasn't necessarily their intention for a whole season to become about a guest actor. You really want guest actors are there to serve the storylines of our main people. And that's what ultimately happened. There was so much that was happening because of the guest actor. Now that could happen with it could have happened with a character that they wanted to turn into like Alex, Olivia Wilde, or the Chris Pratt character, or even those characters were still serving our main characters. But I think that's where it felt the audience doesn't have a lot of allegiance there. But, you know, the idea was that it needed to be somebody that you really saw Marissa falling for. And when the audience didn't really, they didn't respond the way they intended it to, they found themselves in a little bit of a pickle. Because that we were just we didn't have that many comments, but we were like, the general discussion from Reddit is that just many Reddit questionnaires, the polls of the least favorite character of the entire series, many people say Johnny. Do you guys agree with that? Because there was like Charlotte, Oliver, Johnny.
Right.
Which one's Charlotte? Charlotte the redhead?
No, she's the blonde.
Jerry Ryan's character, the beginning of season 3.
Yeah.
Who is she?
Kirsten meets her in rehab, and then
the
con woman.
And, yeah.
I don't know. I think I might hate Oliver more than Johnny, but also, again, the Oliver storyline was a couple of episodes, whereas they took Johnny and stretched it.
Yeah.
So Oliver's the guy from season 1 with the penthouse apartment, the crazy one.
I thought, but Taylor Handley is such a great actor. And I thought
so good.
I think it was a great. I like the storyline because people reacted so well. I don't know, but
that's why he's the least favorite, because he did such a good job at being such a hated character. You know, even though he's like the least favorite, that storyline I think worked really well because it was so short.
Yeah,
it was like he sucked.
Oliver's a character you love to hate, whereas Johnny you're kind of bored by. It's
apathetic,
more snoozeworthy. Yeah. And my takeaways here, what stood out to me was, so you mentioned Marissa running when Johnny called or Chili called. She just left her like full lunch tray right there on the table, just got up and left, and like Ryan's just sitting there with her full lunch, and he doesn't even go to school there.
Yeah,
that was weird. And then I just wanted to actually give the late Johnny Lewis props when he has to tell the fake story to Marissa of like, oh no, they called him, Johnny's back on the tour. His acting in that, like, he was not an actor acting, he was the character of Chili who was acting and telling Marissa this lie. And I thought he was so believable. I thought he sold it really well.
Yeah. I appreciate, I really like Johnny Lewis as a performer, as a person.
Yeah.
Sad story about him. We've talked about it in the past, but yeah, you know, somebody on Reddit, East Technician 9492 said, if it weren't for Johnny, Marissa would still have been alive because she'd have never met Volchok.
Yep.
Whoa.
I think the difference between like Johnny and Oliver is that Oliver was just like a super upfront manipulative guy. Like he just would manipulate and we all knew what he was doing. Whereas Johnny's like subtle manipulation, feel bad for me, take care of me, I need you kind of manipulation that I think is so much worse. And I think that's why I dislike him so much, because it's more of like the gaslighting kind of manipulation versus just like, I'm going to manipulate you into helping me. Like he's like subtly trying to be a sad boy who's like, I need you. Why aren't you here for me? Like he's so much more quiet about it. And I agree. I mean, Marissa never would have met Volchok if Johnny didn't exist.
That Reddit comment just broke my heart because Marissa feels that she's the reason Johnny dies.
And Johnny is the reason Marissa dies.
Wow.
And then in the fourth season, in the, you know, the It's a Wonderful Life episode, you know, where Taylor and Ryan, and in that world, there's a poster of Johnny being a surf. He didn't die. He became a surf pro. And he was like, if he hadn't met Marissa, his life would have been amazing. So, but Making Waves photo on Instagram. Hi. She wrote, this episode feels so different knowing what we know now rather than the first time we watched it. Some definite foreshadowing, and it just makes me sad. I really dislike Johnny. He was so manipulative. Well, Marissa's hair is gorgeous as well. Lol.
I agree, because the last episode we talked about is like right after Johnny dies, and you see the whole flashback of him being up there and drinking and, you know, saying, I love you, Marissa, all this stuff. So yes, in retrospect, this episode, he is really selfless and, you know, wants Marissa to go back to Harbor and really cares about her. But, you know, a few episodes down the line, he's not doing that. He's not being this selfless guy who just wants her to be happy. So in this episode, yes, Johnny's great. Later on,
he's only great though because Ryan comes to his house and basically balls the shit out of him and sets him straight.
right?
And he was like, yeah, because
We didn't.
I just want to. He was like, she can do what she wants. He's like, just want to make sure she's free to make it, because you're not saying like you should do this, you know. And so I was thinking at the very end when Ryan says, you know, it's great that you're back, and are you coming back because of me? And she goes, no, it wasn't. It was really sweet. And he goes, I'll catch up with you. And then we see Ryan and we're like, what is he thinking? He's like, God, I hope this is the right decision. Like, he can feel that there's a part of him going, is my life better without her and the drama that is her, you know, and just he's feeling odd about her relationship with when it comes to Johnny and Oliver. And it's like, I think he's getting these feelings, or these ideas are planted in his head where he's starting to picture his life without her.
I interpret it a little differently, actually. Okay. Correct me if I'm wrong, but in that moment, Marissa also tells him that, oh, Johnny's going on the tour after all. And I thought Ryan's face was giving away that he didn't believe that story.
That's what I perceived it as too, Sherry. I didn't think it was the picturing life without Marissa.
Okay, that was because then he goes to the lifeguard stand. You guys are right. He goes to the lifeguard stand
and talks to Johnny.
Yeah,
right, and says, "I'll meet you at the diner." Yeah,
forgot about that.
What does he say exactly when he sees Johnny at the lifeguard stand?
I think maybe he thanked. Now I'm blanking, but does he thank him for like doing the right thing?
Well, Josephine said maybe Marissa had a lot of trauma she was not dealing with, and in the Christmas episode, they contemplated the idea of her dying regardless of a different reason. No way, I missed that. You're right. I think, you know, she does have that. She has that scene with Ryan where she talks about, like, please just understand, like, this is all my fault. Like, she's trying to make amends, and, you know, she's trying to make things right. And I think because she's not this person that thinks like, okay, it happened, let's move on. She's literally understanding that this guy's life has been upended because of her actions, and if he'd never met her, and it's, you know, making chaos in her wake. She's trying to fix all of that. And I don't know, it's got to be a lot at some point in your life. I guess Ryan will continue to always show up for her, but there was a part of me that was like, I don't know why I kept thinking like he's like, God, this is just getting tiresome dealing with her, Marissa, because it's, you know, I guess that would be selfish of him, but he's a good guy. This last comment is from Annie Sirac on Instagram. The OC is my favorite show of all time. I am currently rewatching with my 11-year-old daughter. Just started season 4. She loves it too, just like I knew she would. I love that Marissa was reinstated at Harbor and could graduate with her friends, but frustrated that she would have stayed at Union to appease Johnny. Like, what about your best friends at Harbor, girl? She's always out to save the wounded boys who are in love with her. I also loved how Taylor stood up to her mom and supported Marissa at the board meeting. Such a cool moment. Love the show. I love that as one of our last comments, because that kind of sums it up.
It's a turning point episode for Taylor.
It's always so refreshing when you're going along on this show, and then you'd have a couple characters in season 3 that actually held the show together, I think. And she's one of them, or just gave it some fresh energy.
I have to point out some of the teen drama connections, both behind the scenes in this episode and storyline wise.
Yes, please.
So first of all, we have Mike Kelly, and he joined the OC in season 2. He became on staff, but before that, he was a co-producer on season 1 of One Tree Hill. And we know One Tree Hill and the OC launched just weeks apart. So Mike went from one show to the other. And then you mentioned him in the beginning, Tony Warmby, and no surprise, he continued to work with Josh and Stephanie. He went on to direct for Gossip Girl, and then he directed for 90210, the spinoff, the CW version as well. So he stayed in the teen drama universe. And then just storyline-wise, you know, the biggest parallel between Free Marissa is to Donna Martin Graduates, which is one of the most iconic storylines and episodes in Beverly Hills 90210. So if we go back to the year 1993, so 10 years before the OC even premiered, this is episode 28 of that season. It was a 31 episode season, and it was episode 28, Something in the Air. And the preceding episode, there's this whole new rules coming down that, if anyone is caught drunk at prom, they won't get to participate in any graduation festivities. Lo and behold, Donna Martin, Tori Spelling's character, our classic good girl, ends up getting drunk at prom, caught by the vice principal, Mrs. Teasley. And in this episode, Something in the Air, the school board wants to enforce the punishment that they said was going to happen to anyone and says, Donna, we're sorry, you're not allowed to graduate with your class. You're going to have to go to summer school, get your diploma at the end of the summer. And it morphs into this protest against the school board, much like Ryan went before the board of trustees to fight for her to be able to graduate with her friends. So it has this iconic march through campus. Everybody's supposed to be taking finals, and the juniors and seniors stage a walkout. And they all have these signs, and they're chanting through campus, Donna Martin graduates, Donna Martin graduates. And they bust into the Board of Education meeting. And much like Taylor interrupted and made the case for why Marissa should be enrolled back at Harbor, you had Brandon doing that here at school board on 90210, making the case for why Donna deserved to be able to graduate. And so definitely same storyline in two different generations, so much so that if you watch the 90210 episodes, there's a sign that says Free Donna.
Yeah.
Whereas on the OC, Free Marissa. And then if you watch the OC episode, there's a sign that says Marissa Cooper graduates, which is a take on Donna Martin graduates.
Yeah.
And so there's clear echoes between the two. But I would say the stakes are a little different. In one case, we have Marissa's just expelled from the school. She's going to public school, and it's about fighting to get her back into Harbor. In Donna's case, she's going to get to graduate anyway. It's just, does she get to graduate in May or does she graduate in August? And that was enough for them to, stage this massive protest. But Marissa had the Free Marissa t-shirts. We didn't have that on 90210. But today, Tori Spelling now sells Donna Martin graduates t-shirts. So it all kind of comes.
Okay.
circle.
Well, and then there was the episode previous to this. Summer's wearing a Donna Martin graduates t-shirt in one of the scenes. And so on the podcast, I realized that I was like, then they really had it in
their minds.
Yeah, they already knew that these episodes were happening. And, that all comes down to just like a costume designer or a production designer, like putting their personal touches on things. These things aren't all just created by the writer in the script. It's, somebody says, let's do it this way. And also I always thought that Josh was more of a Freaks and Geeks, My So-Called Life, that those were his influences, right. Where Stephanie brought in the 90210. And of course, this show for Fox was going to be like their new 90210. They just didn't realize it was going to be as much of a Trojan horse as it was, because they wanted us to do, what did you say that the 90210 did, like upwards of 34 episodes or 32 episodes? 32. They wanted that to happen because that was their model. They were shooting episodes in 7 days on 90210, I think, and doing.
Well, they also did what was known as double ups, which is where they shot 2 episodes simultaneously. And so they would have 2 crews, and maybe one character, let's say Donna, would be heavily in episode A and less heavily in episode B. That way she was able to
produce more content. Wow.
Exactly.
So then you're busy. And I also knew that I did a spelling show. They're really strict. They're like, you actors, you get 45 minutes to get ready. None of this hour and a half, 2 hours thing, which was, no, it's a machine. And I know that they had suggested all of that to the OC, and Josh was able to kind of go, no, this is what we're able to do. And each year we were a little bit less because they were burnt out, but, okay, listen, we've got a few voicemails. First one is from Jason Cueto.
Hello, Melinda. My name's Jason. I hail from Dallas, Texas, here to give you my thoughts on the OC episode, The Safe Harbor from Season 3. Now, this is a very important episode considering that where we have gone with the gang from the beginning of season 3, especially with Marissa being kicked out of Harbor. And ultimately, this is a very satisfying and cathartic one for everybody, as we do see Marissa getting worked back into Harbor for senior year as Brian, Summer, Seth, and to turn this all around from how people felt about her in early season 3 episodes, even Taylor Townsend even pitches in her efforts to get Marissa back in, as well as little moments that we get sprinkled in from your character and from Dr. Roberts, as as we come to understand about this episode, like big bad deeds are committed, but ultimately with time they can be forgiven. And I'm pretty much just like scratching the surface here, but this is just my thoughts, and this is actually one of my favorite episodes of season 3, and I really looked at season 3 as pretty much like an underrated of the bunch. But this is Jason from Dallas, Texas, giving you my thoughts once again, or you can find me at Instagram on J_the_real_deal_CEE. Thank you so much for your time, and best of luck on the podcast.
Well, he just summed it up for us.
I know, right? That was.
You know what? Let's just delete everything we've recorded and just play his voicemail. He summed it up perfectly. We don't even need to post this episode.
And I think this is another comment on the fact that here's people saying, I liked this episode. I enjoyed this. And Josh was saying that one of their biggest faults was that the people that had a lot, or Television Without Pity, the people that had, once again in social media, everyone loves to be negative. Just because some people are being negative doesn't mean that that represents everyone. A lot of times people who are positive don't feel the need to put out the positive. And I think they admittedly were influenced by people being negative about something, and it was just a small faction. I think we're finding that some people, and again, maybe people change their minds as they get a little bit older, but I still like the episode. I think even though we might complain about Johnny, or like I said, shake our fists at the screen, I still love season 3. I mean, I still love it. I don't know. Yeah. Let me do another one. This one is from Chris in France.
Hello, everybody. Hello from France. Sorry for my accent. I'm just a French guy, and I love this series. We said in France, series or your TV show, Newport Beach in France and also in US. And on this episode, I really love how Ryan started to be adult and to reason with more. Sorry, I don't have the name in English for that, but he's more clever, he's more adult, I want to say, as I said before. Sorry, because it's not easy to speak in English when you are a French native guy, and I really love this series.
He liked Ryan. He liked what Ryan...
Yeah, that Ryan's like standing up and he's going towards Johnny and talking to Johnny and he's taking action.
I know he's such a man. And actually, there were times when, when we first started the show, Ben was 24 when it started. His birthday's in September, and he turned 25 late in the first year. But I never saw him that way because he seemed so young. He was inhabiting this 16-year-old kid, but on sometimes every once in a while an episode, I'm like, oh, he's a man here. I could see he just looked like a mature dad, like a young dad, taking care. Did you guys think that too?
Who's a DILF?
He is today. He's got a couple of kids.
You said dad, Mom. If you say the word dad.
Listen, okay, so we have one more.
Are you gonna ignore
I'm just ignoring the word. I know, CG, I know a couple words that you don't like. So, the D word, that other D word.
Oh, yeah, I hate that word.
Okay, here's one more from Alexandra.
Hi, I'm Alexandra from Bulgaria. I really love the OC and the podcast. Season 3 is my least favorite, maybe because I think there was a lot of tension in that season. But actually, there was also a lot of dynamics in between the characters, and I think the cast played very good this season. In this episode, I think also Marissa, actually Misha Barton's hair look really good. Also Ryan is super handsome in this episode.
Diff.
I'm not sorry. I felt relieved that Marissa got to graduate with their friends, and when I was young, it was like I was super happy about her. And I'm not sorry about Johnny. He was really misunderstood, and there was this a lot of teen drama. I think that nowadays, and when we grow up, we know that we can be friends and things can be okay even if we graduate in different schools and things like that. But yeah, it was a good episode. Thank you, love you, bye.
Okay, I just love that we France, Bulgaria, there were so many, but there was somebody from Brazil. It's all over. We're getting love from the planet. I love it. Good points there. Everyone has good points. But yeah, that was the safe harbor.
Yeah, I do think season 3 is a lot of people's least favorite season, which is why I've been so surprised that the last 2 episodes. Well, I guess in the top 50, I guess there are going to be a few season 3 ones, but yeah, I guess it's normal, or I'm expecting more season 3 in the lower numbers, and then as we go up, I'm expecting 1 and 2.
Well, yes, we asked people to give us their favorites from each season.
We haven't had any from season 4.
Not yet, but there could be. I'm hoping. We're only a few into this. So, yeah, between Johnny and Marissa's hair, those were the top topics.
Well, it doesn't surprise me that people voted for this just because of the Free Marissa storyline. Like, there's a reason why there is Free Marissa merchandise right now, because it's a storyline that resonates with people in a season that maybe is not highly regarded. For this to be voted into the top 50, it's because of that storyline. And, in a sea of episodes that maybe you don't like the Johnny storyline overall, but this one has the Free Marissa component, and that makes it memorable to people.
Right. Well, let me ask you one more thing before you go. How did you like the book?
The book was interesting.
Did you learn anything new?
Well, I was very moved learning about Josh's uncle and the influence that he had on the project. If Josh had ever spoken about that before, I must have missed it. That was new to me. So I found that really moving, and knowing that Josh had another pilot before the OC that he was working on, it made me wonder, what if that came to fruition? What would that have been like? Mm-hmm. So there were some what ifs. There were a lot of, as much as there was great variety in the people interviewed, there were a lot of significant names that I would have liked to have heard from that we didn't, whether it was the Olivia Wilde, Chris Pratt. I made a whole list, honestly, and Johnny Donahue is certainly one of them. Mm-hmm. I would have liked, there were only a couple of sentences on how the OC begot Gossip Girl, and I think a little bit more time could have been spent on the connection between those two. Mm-hmm. The OC ended in 2007 in April, and they went right into Gossip Girl, which premiered in September of that year. And, I would have loved more reflections from Josh and Stephanie about what they learned from the OC in good ways and bad that they then applied to Gossip Girl. I was surprised that there was only one reference to One Tree Hill, and it was when Stephanie brought it up, and it was in the context of, how are we killing Marissa? And she said something to the effect of, well, we couldn't have like a car go off into the water because One Tree Hill just did that. And I was surprised that was the only mention of it, because, as I've said many times, the shows premiered at the exact same time in the calendar. One was August 2003, the other was September 2003. A lot of ways targeted the same demographic. And on the Drama Queens podcast, where the actresses that are rewatching One Tree Hill, they have spoken quite a bit about, getting directives from executives that the show has to be sexier like the OC, be more like the OC, be more like the OC. And so I was very surprised that in this oral history of the OC, One Tree Hill seemed like completely a non-factor on the OC side. So it was kind of lopsided in that regard. And then, being the Beverly Hills 90210 stan that I am, I think, a lot of times the OC is given credit for being the first to do X, Y, and Z. And I do think it's because people don't realize that Beverly Hills 90210 actually did it. one of the things was heavily discussed in the book was, how Marissa was smoking in the pilot and then they were told that they can never do that again. Well, there was a smoking storyline with Brenda in season 3 of Beverly Hills 90210. Or having a Jewish character. Andrea Zuckerman was a series regular from day one on Beverly Hills 90210, and her faith played into several storylines. Or the OC is celebrated for the ways in which it's very meta. Well, Dawson's Creek was very meta too. It was just a few years before. And so I think sometimes the shows that led to the OC are not necessarily given enough credit for the groundwork that they laid that allowed us to have the OC. Now, to the OC's credit, I will say it absolutely took the genre to the next level. I think, especially in the way in which it used humor, and similar to the ways that I think its predecessors aren't given credit, I think sometimes the OC isn't given the credit it deserves. And I can give an example of that. I mentioned Charles Rosen earlier, who was a producer for the first 5 seasons of Beverly Hills 90210. He was the showrunner. And, in the book, they talk about, they don't name specifically, but they mention before they brought in Bob DeLaurentis that they spoke to another veteran showrunner who had been there, done that, and interviewed him for the job, and it wasn't the right fit. I can't say for certain, but I'm pretty sure that was Chuck, who has said in other contexts that he interviewed for the OC, and their visions did not align. And around the time the book came out, he expressed shock that there was a book about the OC. And he was very dismissive that show only ran 4 seasons. What is there to write about? And I thought, man, you're right when you say you've never seen an episode of the OC. Because had you watched those 4 seasons, you would understand why there's a book about it today. And had you been following the critical acclaim, both at the time the show came out and in the decades since, you would understand why there's a book about the OC.
Right.
So the oral history is definitely deserving. It has a legacy for a reason. It is on the Mount Rushmore of teen dramas, but they all deserve a little bit more credit.
I love it.
I didn't know the OC was so connected to all these other shows, and I think almost every single show you've mentioned I've never seen.
Oh, we need to fix that.
So I gotta go back and watch my teen dramas. I've never seen Dawson's Creek, One Tree Hill. I've seen the newer 90210, the new one, which I really liked.
You would love Dawson's Creek. I mean, obviously, Dawson's Creek had some, to me, it felt different. So I think what all these shows do is and you take an old genre and put a new spin. And it's not that, I think what's interesting is that I don't think that Josh was even trying to emulate or even looking at the other shows. He was just doing what he thought was funny, or he was just pulling from his own life and pulling from what was in front of him. Especially in regards to the One Tree Hill or something. I mean, I can't speak for him, but that's kind of what I feel like was happening. It was Stephanie that would pull things that were kind of an ode to 90210 and
right.
And just simply because he was young and doing what he thought was funny and commenting on the cultural reaction, the audience reaction, he started bringing it into the show, even though, and it's not the first time anyone has ever done that. I think the only thing that was kind of different in respect was that the reaction to adults watching it because their kids were watching it and somehow being connected. My mom loved Sandy and Seth. Living in Orange County, my mom was like, that's the best part of it because I live in Orange County and we don't experience stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I think that those things were new.
Well, yeah, I also think rewatching it now, I watched it for the first time when I was the age of the core 4. I was 18 and now I'm 24 and rewatching it and I'm seeing things very differently and looking at different aspects of it and everything. So, I mean, it works. This genre, and I think the OC in particular, just works for all different age groups. It's just your perspective on it changes. I could watch it again in 10 years and again in 20 years, and I'd probably see different things and have different perspectives and different feelings about the characters and everything. And this whole drama, and it just, what are you pointing and laughing?
No, I was just saying, I'm listening to you. I'm not pointing at you. I'm thinking as Josephine said, ironically, I feel like One Tree Hill pushed the sex stuff way more than the OC.
And she's not wrong.
And they ended up pushing it more probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But I would say that, and granted, I was not of the age to be doing this. But in the early 1990s, especially in the first 2 seasons where Beverly Hills 90210 was less serialized and more episodic, and they had more issue of the week style episodes, there are a lot of articles where parents and teens said, oh, because this was on, 90210, we had a discussion about it.
Mm-hmm.
But things are really coming full circle. If Beverly Hills 90210 was one generation, the 1990s, and the OC was in the aughts. I don't know if you guys saw the news over the weekend, but there's a new show that's in the works called Calabasas, and it's based on a book. Yes, that Calabasas. And Kim Kardashian is executive producing it, and Deadline describes it as in the vein of Beverly Hills 90210 and the OC. And it's the premise, the logline they give.
Lord.
The logline they give is that same.
With the remakes.
It's the same fish out of water.
Yeah, when, it's been a while since any of these shows have been up. But anyway, we could continue.
Calabasas.
We've run out of time. So everyone,
I have to go to work.
Listen, thank you all for listening. Please be sure to check out my Instagram at the Melinda Clark. Check out my stories and the posts, as well as our weekly Reddit thread for what episodes we're covering next. Which one is your favorite? If so, you can go to SpeakPipe and at
speakpipe.com/OC bitch.
Or email us. Do that again, speakpipe.com/OC bitch, or email us at beyondtheocpodcast@gmail.com to let us know why and what makes it your favorite. Do you have a favorite line, favorite scene? We might play your voicemail like we did here on the show and ask you to come on to discuss like Sherry did. If you'd like to watch the podcast, please check it out on the Beyond the OC YouTube channel, and you can leave comments there too. So also, do you want to be part of the conversation? Join us each week on Patreon. We do live Zooms every week to get episodes early and ad-free. And then we also discuss the previous week's episode. We've got a whole community over there. But yeah, check it out.
You can also, if you join the Patreon, be a part of our audience and watch us while we're recording. We've got some cool audience members right now. And we read your comments as we're recording and we talk about it. So if there's something you really want to say, join the Patreon and you can watch us live.
Yep. Okay. And then next week will be, I saw this is number 46, and this is
Season 4, Episode 8. The Earth Girls Are Easy.
Here we are in Season 4. Season 4. Okay, kiddos. Thank you all for coming beyond the OC, even though we're staying in it, but we're kind of going beyond it. I don't know. Thank you, Sherry. Thank you, Darlene CG. Go have a great day.
Thank you for having me.
Love y'all. Bye, bitches.
Bye, bitches.